On this week's Shoot the Messenger, Congo in crisis from Kinshasa to Downing Street, and Mama Africa on film through the eyes of her children. Hello, I'm Henry Bonsu, and this is Shoot the Messenger, an hour of current affairs and cultural chat from the best of African and Caribbean Britain. Today's guests can trace their roots back to St. Kitts, Uganda, England, and of course Ghana. Lucy Patterson will tell us about Our Africa, a pioneering project which allowed children from several countries to put their world on film. And we'll spread the word and talk in tongues with the Ugandan poet NICK MAKOHA. But that's for later. Let's concentrate now on the key stories of the week with our paper reviewers. They are the journalist Steve Mulindwa and the spoken word artist and activist Zena Edwards. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Are you all gearing up for Christmas, or do you tend to say bar humbug, Ebenezer Scrooge, to the season of goodwill to all women and men?
I don't know which one to take.
Well, I mean, bar humbug for you, I think. Ebenezer Mulindwa. What about you, Zena?
I tend to look forward to this time of year. It kind of can slow down a little bit and sort of like reconnect with people. Yeah, because I mean, doing spoken word, you're a freelance artist, so you just have to constantly be grafting. And this time of year, everything sort of shuts down. So, you know, it's just a nice opportunity just to reconnect with people.
Do you feel pressure to be extra spiritual because spoken word artists are supposed to kind of look beyond the mundane day-to-day stuff that Steve and I do, going down the high street, Oxford Street, and shopping for family and relatives, but you probably see beyond all that?
Actually, that's why it's a good opportunity to just lock off from all of that. I don't have to.
You don't have to.
I don't have to be all deep and meaningful, so I can just be myself.
Looks everything out.
Looks
everything out.
Excellent.
In my case, it's a question of looking at what the year has been, reassess the new year, and look at how is the next year going to be.
You don't see it through, you're feeling the pressure to see it through an African point of view. Do you do the standard stuff like everybody, turkey and all the trimmings and stuff?
No, well, those are coming because you're used to them over the years. You've used to them. You know the turkey's there. You're going to have it and so on.
So you don't have to go for Kampala and turkey.
No.
All right, we'll move on for now. Okay, good start to the program. The front pages are in, so let's see what they're saying. And the Observer reports city experts are charging huge management fees that are eating into people's pensions. The Independent on Sunday claims that the US Army knew that the alleged whistleblower Bradley Manning had mental health problems before sending him to Iraq. The Sunday Express says Prince William and Harry are to make an emotional return to their mother's former home and plan to use it for charity events. And Harry also makes the front page of the Mail on Sunday, apparently racing to the rescue of a friend who was being mugged for his BlackBerry phone. The Sunday Telegraph says the Deputy PM Nick Clegg has come out against tax breaks for married couples, increasing the rift between his party and the Tories. And finally, the Sunday Times reveals civil servants are planning how to rescue British expats living in the Eurozone in case the single currency collapses. Okay, what about what our friends and colleagues here in the studio have been checking out in terms of the papers? Shall we start off with you, Zena? Where are we going to go with you? Let's have a look.
Well, I'm looking at the an article called "The Oxbridge Reveals a Drop in Numbers of Black Students." That's in the Sunday Times. It's an interesting one, just from the perspective of thinking about what expectations are of black students. Full stop. I mean, it says here, it's the responsibility of schools to have high expectations of all their students, and not to indulge in any dumbing down or tokenism. Yeah. And I think that seems to be, I mean, it's something that's quite prevalent. I think it's quite prevalent to have sort of a tokenist person of colour, just to tick the boxes. It looks good in terms of.
But isn't it a measure of how well a community is doing in this country? Looking at some of the top universities that send people ultimately to Parliament, ultimately to Downing Street, and if there are virtually no people of African or Caribbean or other communities there, then it kind of says something about where a community is in the society.
But I think when we start looking at this from the perspective of race, we're going to hit problems.
Yeah.
Because we're dealing with a society that has just had quite an uproar,
Yeah.
you know, the summer riots and everything. And a lot of that, a lot of the media attention around that, some of it was to do with race. A lot of people will say that it wasn't to do with race. I think there's certain levels of expectations of what's expected from certain people, from certain communities. So I think...
this is something that David Cameron raised, of course, last year, as did the Tottenham MP, David Lamb, because they concluded that only one person of African Caribbean origin had been accepted into Oxford in the year 2010. The big question is, what do you do about it if it really is such a problem?
Well, interestingly enough, that's what it says here. Was it one British black student had gone to Oxford in 2009, when actually it was 27.
That's including people of African as opposed to just African Caribbean origin. So there's a big controversy about this.
Well, I just think it's if they can't even get the facts right, then you know how really important is this issue. You know, and I think just in terms of like looking at the relevance of academia anyway, why does it always have to be high levels of academia is the only way to consider yourself to be a successful person. I think there's entrepreneurship, there's definitely self-determination. That's not necessarily always through academia. You know,
but for the majority of people, though, it is going to be, you know, because it's great having this phenomenal idea that people get behind, but what are the avenues to get that idea in front of banks, in front of private equity people, in front of people who are going to push your idea for you?
Totally. So I think it's a change in a culture of thought, I think.
Okay, well, good. I like this idea. We're talking about Arab Spring type revolution. I know she's into the whole Occupy movement. She is, you know, St. Paul's Cathedral and Wall Street. Okay, we're going to move to your first story.
My first story.
The Home Secretary Theresa May looking to deport people back to their countries of origin.
That's one of the stories that I have here, and they're highlighting the number of countries, actually, and some of them are African countries, about 4 of them: Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Somalia, Algeria, and Democratic Republic of Congo.
Wow.
Where, you know, some of them are supposed to be deported, and their numbers are quite high. But overall, the whole picture is 4,238 number of prisoners who are meant to have been deported, are released back into the community. They couldn't because of the Human Rights Acts. Some of them have something to do with marriage. One particular one had, in fact, was made to be deported, but the judge said he has a right to a family.
Oh, but that's Article 8 of the Human Rights Act, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So the whole article is based on where we go from here if we can't deport them, because some of them have reoffended. You know, they've gone out and reoffended, and there's one who actually have committed, was a rapist. So he was sent back to the community, and he went back to rape again, you know, and he's back in prison now. So the whole thing is how do we look at it from the angle of the human rights?
As African and
because
Caribbean
lawyers
people
are using it. All the lawyers are using the Human Rights Act at the moment. Now, the question is, should we opt out of that, the Human Rights Act? Or is there something else that can be done, you know, as far as that is concerned?
Well, they're talking about a British Bill of Rights, aren't they? The big question is for us as African and African Caribbean people. On the one hand, we feel instinctively unhappy when we see how Africans are overrepresented in this list that you mentioned there. On the other hand, we don't want the streets to be walked by people who could do us harm, whether they're African or not.
Exactly. Especially when there is always a chance of reoffending. Because if the chance of reoffending is there, somebody who went in for burglary or something like that, tomorrow you'll be promoted to, if you jump into a different type of crime, you know, and the next thing you know, is probably become a murderer. So the whole point is if it doesn't stop somewhere, if there's no stop somewhere, if there's no fear of being taken, you know, they know that most of the prisons here are very soft.
Do you think we should implement the kind of Ugandan-style judicial system?
Well,
it's probably based on the British one anyway. Don't worry, it's a rhetorical question. We're going to move on. Theresa May is also in your story, Zina, the Home Secretary again, giving her analysis of the recent riots or uprisings.
Oh my goodness! Well, as you can see,
I know you feel strongly about
this. I do. You know, I've written.
Look at that headline.
The writers think the police. So the writers think police are always causing us hell as the Home Secretary. I can only say good.
Right. What say you, Zina? Deep breath.
I mean, I have to say, I found the LSE and the Guardian report really, really interesting, and it was really nice that sounds nice, sounds a little bit weak, but, you know, it was great. It was essential to hear the rioters' perspective, finally, to hear something from the rioters. I don't even really like using the term rioters because it instantly criminalises
well, some of them did do very serious criminal activities, including burning innocent people out of their house and home.
I mean, totally. I mean, these are the arguments that are constantly pulled up, and they're constantly the ones that are pushed in the face of mainstream media, and that's what we see. But no one really... I'm interested in what's... I think just recently there was a Guardian article about young girls who were involved in there. We had that young Olympic ambassador.
That's right, whose mum shocked her to the police.
I mean, you know, but other than that, there's so many perspectives that are involved in this. But the main story that gets pushed forward is the one about how, you know, it was all criminal activity. It was nihilistic, greedy. You know, it was that kind of dialogue that's going on. And for me, I just think it's really unfair for us as the public to not have a fair perspective on some of the voices of the people who were involved in this.
Is there something about cutting down on the issue on say government funding on most of the issues?
The cuts, you mean, that fuel the riots?
No, the funding which the governments had, had cut down now, like libraries are closing down, social areas where people used to go, parks are even now, some parks are closing down, where youth used to go and, either play football or basketball, whatever. Now, most of the youth clubs are closed down because of the funding. So that kind of thing. The Home Office used to fund quite a lot. Because I remember in Hackney, we had a sound radio in Hackney when I started in radio. And around the radio station, there was a lot of activities going on in Hackney. Because at the time, the police used to say that youth go into crime sometimes because they don't have anywhere to play. They don't have anything to do. So you have to, the Home Secretary was funding that area, that particular area.
But no Home Secretary is going to take a softly line on something like this, even if there are underlying issues, of resentment, anger at the gap between rich and poor, youth clubs closing down. A Home Secretary has to come out and be on the side of the police in matters like this, doesn't she?
That's a fair point. However, I think what kind of irks me a little bit about this is there's that whole the way that she talks about how most of the young people, or the people who was in stop and search, or who were actually arrested, were already involved, had some kind of criminal record of some sort previously.
Wasn't that a fact, though?
Yeah, I mean that's okay. But what happens is that it's used as a defence to say, well, these people aren't going to like the police because they're saying that
they're already criminals.
Well, it's not just that. It's not. No, it's not just that. What it is that she's saying that the point that the fact of the matter is, I mean, as the headline says, the police are always causing us hell. We have to think about young people who, possibly from the age of 9 and 10 upwards, who have been harassed and stopped by the police, and it's not just straightforward stop and search. Sometimes there's complete humiliation. We're talking about them having their trousers pulled down.
I've seen this happen.
It's in full public. So there's an element of humiliation that comes into play here, and that actually is what breeds the resentment. So I'm all for some kind of policing and community relations being built between the police and the community. But I also think there is community policing, people within the community who can be involved in also being part of policing.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move to Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe.
Southern Africa, blood diamonds.
Yeah, blood diamonds. We've had...
Normally associate the term blood diamond with Sierra Leone, don't we?
Yeah, Sierra Leone was blood diamond.
Yes,
but the whole thing is probably the same, Zimbabwe diamonds as well, because the whole point is that the Chinese have gone in, Chinese firm has gone in, Anjin Investment, and it's doing, of course, it's getting the diamonds from there. It's passed beyond the ban, which was originally put by the UN, over buying...
something called the Kimberley process,
there's a Morage diamond, Kimberley process, which had been started by one of a chap called Chimbling. In other words, to prevent Zimbabwe from, profiting from diamond, anything else that they have. But now the Chinese have gone beyond that, and of course they are getting the diamond from Zimbabwe, and they're selling Zimbabwe
and they're
police
putting
cars and
pure money, direct cash into the coffers of what Mr. Mugabe. They're saying he's using it.
That's the whole point, and he's using it with his next year's election,
yes,
they are looking at it. His CID, a kind of an organization that deals with the, it's one of these brute organizations that he has.
It's supposed to be some kind of MI5,
yeah, something
working
like that.
on home security and intelligence.
Something like that, home security, and it's, I mean, it's causing a lot of havoc among ordinary Zimbabweans, and he's already, he's arming it. He's even buying arms at the moment in China. So the whole point is, I can see where Zimbabwe is heading now. But at the end of the day, what's the ordinary person on the street? Because there's even a picture here which is really illustrates what's happening. Because these diamonds are coming in, got out by these ordinary people, but they're not getting anything.
No.
Yeah.
This is a story of extractive industries in Africa anyway, isn't it? Across the whole continent.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost the same thing like in Congo.
Yeah.
The same thing like in Sierra Leone as well when it was happening. I mean, nothing is going to get out. The same thing with oil in certain parts of Africa as well.
Please don't curse us with the oil curse at Ghana. We're going to do it differently, all right?
I hope so.
All right, well, we'll wait and see what happens with that story. 2012 promises to be a torrid year, you say, for Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Let's bring things closer to where we are and the European Union and the Eurozone crisis. But the president of Europe, as we must call him, Herman Van Rompuy, I believe he's trying to give us a bit of Christmas cheer.
Yeah, and why not? I mean,
you're kind of pro-EU, right?
I'm not even pro. It's not even about being pro-EU.
Yeah.
There's a guy who wants to put forward a book that's bringing kind of happiness. It's about positive thinking, you know. And I mean, there's a quote here which actually says Van Rompuy says that he would like ministers to assess policies.
Yep.
Which improve overall human happiness, not just to focus on economic growth, but get them to look at overall human happiness.
That echoes what David Cameron was being trying to do.
Yeah, but you know,
anyway. She's getting political again.
No, for me, I just think it's about, it's a case of, you know, an injection of positive thinking. You know, just going off at a tangent. Darren Brown did this interesting. Darren Brown, you know,
he's the magician,
the magician, hypnotist,
illusionist
guy. He did this thing in this small town somewhere up north, and he said, "Have you heard the rumor about the lucky dog?" And people started touching this dog, and believing positive things would come to them because they were touching this lucky dog. And I think this is an injection of positive thinking.
So this is a European-wide version of the lucky dog.
If you like. I mean, but I mean, obviously there's a complete conflict of interest because of all the dramas that's going on in the EU in terms of money and the economy and, you know, it's just a clash of interests.
Does this Eurozone thing worry you personally, or you're not really that fussed because we're outside it here in the UK?
Yeah, it gives me a place of comfortability to be able, because I am on the outside. You know, part of me was just like, actually, I'm really glad we didn't go in there, because it's going to have its teething problems, like serious teething problems. We're looking at becoming like a United States of Europe, and that's just going to be.
Hey, not while Mr. Cameron is Prime Minister.
Yeah,
here in just a moment
I hope not.
All right, and some Christmas cheer for US troops finally coming back to the USA.
Yeah,
after 9 years in Iraq, more or less.
Exactly. So there is a lot of happiness. Some are going back, but then the problems are also starting for some of them. I mean, some of them are going to leave the army, so the suicide rate is high, according to this article here. And with the cuts going on with the way the economy is running in America, there's a lot really happening, and it's a question of really the American army is going to have a lot of money cut from the budget, because you know now there's no need to keep
sending them into spiraling debt anyway over the years, hasn't it?
So, but the key thing is what was the achievement? 4,500 dead, 100,000 or so Iraqis, so many wounded and needing a lot of help in America. But for others, this is where the problems are starting, because they have come home. And you know what they witnessed while they were, you know, there
would be truly horrendous. Now, and the big question is, what happens to the people of Iraq now?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
that's another thing, because there's a problem between Shias and Sunnis.
Yep. So a sigh of relief from Mr. Obama ending the Iraq war responsibly as he campaigned when he was running for office. But a few more sleepless nights ahead over Iran and other things. Wonderful. We're going to move on because on the European political front, it was a week for all those cliches about Agincourt and Waterloo, as Britain and France traded insults over the strength of their respective economies. While the French Prime Minister, Foreign Minister and Central Bank Governor questioned the UK's credit rating, their President Sarkozy went further, calling David Cameron an obstinate kid. But when he appeared before MPs in the House of Commons, Mr Cameron revelled in his new status of EU rebel.
Statement, the Prime Minister.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
We went seeking a deal at 27, and I responded to the German and French proposal for treaty change in good faith, genuinely looking to reach an agreement. But frankly, I have to tell the House the choice was a treaty without proper safeguards or no treaty, and the right answer was no treaty. I am absolutely clear that it is possible to be both a full, committed and influential member of the European Union, but to stay out of arrangements where they do not protect our interests. That is what I've done at this Council. That is what I will continue to do as long as I'm Prime Minister. It is the right course for this country, and I commend this statement to the House.
Mr. Ed Miliband.
How can the Prime Minister expect to persuade anybody else it's a good outcome when he can't persuade his own deputy? The Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, claimed to have wielded a veto. But a veto, let me explain to him, is supposed to stop something happening. It's not a veto when the thing you wanted to stop goes ahead without you. Mr. Speaker, that's called losing. That's called being defeated. That's called letting Britain down.
Prime Minister's questions, don't you love it? Don't you just love it, Zena? When you see them going toe-to-toe like that. And on something like Europe, which David Cameron thought he had laid to rest, but it's come back in with a vengeance.
I mean, the thing about watching David Cameron defend himself on this particular point, it's very, very interesting, I think, from the perspective of trying to project the future, because I think this is what it's about. We're trying to project what's going to come in terms of the European Union settling, and whether or not it's going to be everybody's going to go back to their own currencies, and what voice is the UK going to have in the future?
I mean, David Cameron seemed to be happy about the whole splendid isolation. If you look at the polls again today, I mean, they've surged further and further ahead. Cameron right now is very popular. Do you understand why?
Yeah, I think the point is he's looked at the issue of the money that the British government has been, the British as a whole, been giving to Europe, because although they're out of Europe, they still have money that they give.
Well, out of the Eurozone.
They're out of the Eurozone, but they still, give money to Europe. So they still have that veto, which he can use, and he used it. So everybody's saying, okay, he's a strong man. He stood against them, despite what they're saying. But he's foreseen, as you're saying, the future. But what kind of future are we looking at now? Because decisions might be made without us, and they are going to affect us.
Yes.
You see, that is where the whole thing is. What is going to happen now? But you can still see that there is still a lot happening within Europe, even though Britain is not in the Eurozone. All the other presidents are also questioning. They say, look, if the taxes are going to go up, we don't want it to happen. And these are smaller countries, but they have already foreseen what is going to happen. So maybe he's right in a way.
In a way, and the thing is, it's important to perform well in the House of Commons. And whenever I look at those green benches and who is there, it's supposed to represent the country as a whole. Around 650 MPs, there are 27 people of African, Caribbean, Asian origin. There should be around 60 or so. I wonder how long it's going to take us. How important is it, do you think, to have people who look like us, far more, in the House of Commons? Or does it not really matter, because when they get there, they go native?
That's interesting. I mean, just from the perspective of politics, it's a big machine, and people have to start stepping in line after a particular
you follow the party
while.
whip.
And I think we still need to have balanced representation, definitely. It's a balance in terms of the population. I mean, it's a theatre at the end of the day as well.
It is, but it's a mirror as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that too,
I'm just wondering, because, I mean, imagine if you went into the House of Commons, if you stood for office, you ran, and we would be your election agents and your campaign managers. What would your manifesto be, I'm wondering? Because, I mean, you said you're kind of a hippie into spirituality. Well, how's that going to look in the House of Commons? Who's going to vote for that?
I mean, I'm a holistic holistic person. I like to think about all the elements that make us human beings. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously there's the practicalities of functioning.
Yes.
But there's also
tax and spend.
all of that. But there's also, you know, your mental health. It has to be looked after. And for those who are spiritually in tune and, you know, maybe align themselves with the faith, they want to be able to, you know, look at whatever makes you feel comfortable, so that your spiritual well-being is also, you know, catered for as well.
All right. Let's go to your polar opposite, Steve. What about you? I mean, have you ever considered running for office? I mean, what would you campaign on if you were running, you know, to be an MP?
If I was to be an MP, I think I would look more at the areas where I am. If the areas where I am, what kind of people am I going to represent in Parliament?
In East London?
Yeah, in East London.
Yeah.
What do they want? What do they want? And from what they want, is what I would probably base my campaign.
But would ethnicity matter? Because you talk to any black MPs, many of them will say, look, I'm not the black MP for Tottenham or for Hackney, I'm the MP for Tottenham and Hackney or Hackney, and I'm representing everybody there, whether they're white, black, Turkish, Iranian, whatever.
Yeah.
And so you can't push race too much in the House of Commons.
Yeah, you can't push race too much, but at the same time, you also have to look at race in a way. You have to look at it. You can't press it, but you have to look at areas where it's represented.
Yeah.
Have we got schools there? Have we got what is required by our people? You know, some of these things have got to be looked at, because no matter whether you're representing everybody else, but which majorities have you got? I mean, I like the American way. You can see the senators, you can see the, you know, all those in House of Representatives. They still go back, and somewhere they say, no, listen, in my area, I've got 80% black, and 80% black. I have to make sure that the 80% black is represented.
All right.
You know, so we need more black schools. So, and they say so straight away. You
well,
see,
yeah, in the States they can say that. Here it will frighten the
Latinos do the same thing straight away.
But it's very, very different. We're going to have to move on. That's very, very different. Okay. We'll try and weave it into other parts of the program. I'm sure you will do, because you're both creative people. We'll move on to this. Because for all the faults in European democracies, and there's quite a few, there remain enough of a beacon for people fighting foreign governments to choose to make their point in European capital cities. Thus, Congolese campaigners gathered in both Brussels and London to protest against the dubious re-election victory of DRC President Joseph Kabila.
The credibility of these elections cannot be put in doubt. Were there mistakes, errors? Definitely. Definitely. Like in any other election, be it on the continent or otherwise. But does it put in doubt the credibility of the elections? I don't think so.
One of the most unreported stories out there, what's going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and how now we're seeing reflections of all that unrest on the streets of London and Brussels, Washington and even South Africa. Just wondering what you make of that, you two. And a new anger, militancy, but here on the streets of London, in Whitehall, in Downing Street, Oxford Circus, Oxford Street. We've seen this twice in the last week now. I suppose people are getting increasingly frustrated because this country was mobilizing for the Arab Spring, for people in Libya and elsewhere. But when it comes to something far bigger, in Congo, DRC, nothing's going on.
Yeah, I think I should say over something like 10 years ago, we've been having quite a lot of Congolese and people from other migrant countries, that former French-speaking countries, coming into the UK. And because their numbers have gone up, and they've realized that Britain has always supported other African countries, here is now the center of what they can do, because the French haven't gone in so much to be of any assistance. With them, they go with whoever is in power anyway, and this is what happened in Rwanda. So that's why there wasn't much of that. But
should we welcome this new, I suppose, militancy? African women there fighting British police on the streets of London. I can't remember when I last saw that.
Yeah, but we shouldn't welcome it, but we should dig deep and find out why is it happening. Because somewhere along the way, they want, most of them probably want to go back home. But the issue is they're finding it difficult. How do they go back when
they can't believe in the election results?
When they can't believe in the results, and on top of that, they are seeing some of them. There were some parties which were disqualified. You know, some people wanted to go and take part, and they said, no, we've had enough. You are not going to be part of this. So all that is nobody's really done a thorough investigation over the Kabila regime, the previous regimes. So, and now he's back in power. So nothing really. We get news now and then in the press about Kabila and the regime in the Congo, but we don't get details over what is in there, because we really don't have much representation in the country.
I mean, Congo is not a country, DRC, not a country where this particular country, the broadcasters here, have really paid that much attention, even though millions have died over the past 15 years.
One of the things is going in as well is difficult, because being a French-speaking country, and I mean, I've been there, I've been to the other side of Congo from Uganda, and I've seen how difficult, even to maneuver. Well, Mobutu never did anything for that country.
No, he didn't.
Move from A to B is very, very difficult. And this is a country which is the size of Western Europe.
This is the thing, they call it the heart of Africa. They used to call it the heart of darkness. We'll move on from there. Thank you very much indeed for that. Now, watch most fundraising campaigns focus in Africa, and you'll notice they tell a single story, that of the poor, desperate child who needs your help. Now, charities say these images work. The more terrible the pictures, the more people give. But now some organisations are challenging this. One of them is SOS Children, the largest orphan charity in the world. It's just launched a new film project called Our Africa, enabling children across the continent to document their lives to help school kids here better understand.
Hi, my name is Oji. Je suis Mademoiselle Bueno Adeline.
My name is Kimisa.
My name is Haptam.
My name is Karen.
My name is Mestaba.
Je m'appelle Rafik.
Je m'appelle Fatou.
My name is Adisi Tagasu.
My name is Mastana.
Hi, my name is Victor.
Je m'appelle Abdelrahman.
Nous sommes en Côte d'Ivoire.
Welcome to Botswana.
Welcome to Sudan.
Bienvenue au Sénégal.
Welcome to Kenya, the home of the big five animals.
Welcome to Ethiopia,
the cradle of mankind.
Welcome to Uganda. This is Lake Victoria.
And I am from Ghana. Welcome to my country.
Our Africa is the opportunity to get deeper into authentic Africa than even people who go there on a tourist trip manage to do.
And now we know how to use a camera and to do a video. Thank you. Thank you.
Our Africa, and Lucy Patterson from SOS Children is with us now. Can you explain the genesis of this? Because it sounds something really good project, really good idea. But most charities don't think of doing things like this. They put the horrible image of the destitute child next to a vulture. And, of course, the money comes flooding in, especially during comic relief and the other big fundraising campaigns. So why did you decide, you know what, we're not going to do that?
I think
because we want to portray that we're helping children, and people want to see happy, smiling faces. And we've, like you said, we've seen so many other charities already portray the image of the sad children and these really frightening and scary stories and things. And it's a different way, a different style and a different stance. It really does work. People want to see happy, smiling faces and see what the charity's actually doing.
So how did you choose which country to go to and which children to give the cameras to?
Well, we work in 125 countries, and we've been working in Africa for 40 years. And Africa's pretty special to SOS Children. We work in 45 of the African countries. We have villages all across Africa. Deciding is we go to whichever country. We've been to 18 countries now for the Evolving Our Africa site. And there are 14 which are currently available to view.
Right, okay.
And we run workshops with the children when we go out and we give them the cameras, and we teach them a new skill such as learning to edit, film, direct. And the couple of children that particularly shine in the workshops are the ones that we then kind of ask them to go and do interviews about their country, so they can tell their story and tell the rest of the world about their country and about their lives through their own thoughts and on a camera.
We're not just looking for general observations. My name is Moses, I'm from Kampala and life is good. You want more than that. So what are you really driving at?
We're asking them to to get into the authentic Africa. So, like you were saying before, I think children and young people in the UK especially have a very sort of journalistic view of Africa.
Yeah.
That being,
if it bleeds, it leads.
Absolutely, yeah. Poverty, drought, famine, and so forth. And what the children here want to say is, Africa's got loads. We're a really rich country in culture, in tradition, in music, and they're really fun. Some of these videos are just incredible. They talk about, what matters most to them. Opinions on religion, on marriage, on things that are really specific to their country. So, for example, in the Ivory Coast, Adelaine, who is the chief reporter there, she goes and visits a cocoa plantation. Yeah, chief reporter. In Kenya, for example, the chief reporter there, Victor, who is just fantastic. Really, he makes you smile when you watch the films. He took it so seriously, the filming and things.
Yeah.
He wouldn't start any filming without somebody shouting out to him, "You've got to say lights, camera, action, lights, camera, action."
He's got all Hollywood. He's got all Hollywood.
And he's just, and he went to Kibera to interview women in the slums there. He went to the safari. He'd never been to safari before, and he hadn't seen a giraffe or something.
This is a horrendous thing, yeah.
He lives in Kenya, and it was just. And the smiles and things on his faces, and the children there just absolutely loved being and having the opportunity to tell their story.
Well, you describe it so vividly and with such passion. We need to have a look at some of this. I mean, the wonderful thing about the project is just how varied, as you were saying, Lucy, the videos are in their subject matter. We'll take a look at one now from Rwanda, where the children in the film are confronted by some extremely strong images.
This is the Memory Center, while we find the bodies of the people who died in the genocide.
You can't imagine how 1 million of people have been killed in 3 months. It is, as a human being, you can't imagine how those things have happened.
In school, we are told about those people, those Interahamwe, that there are the people who are encouraged to kill others. They use those big sticks to hit the people.
After 1994 genocide, in Rwanda, justice was needed. So the government restored the traditional culture called Gacaca. People who have killed others have to ask forgiveness in front of the public. Also, it's helping in reconciliation. If someone asks you forgiveness and told you where you have put your family members, it will be easy to give him forgiveness.
Some are able to forgive, others are still trying to give forgiveness, but all in all, they will end up giving them forgiveness if they come. So I think the good way to do it is to bring back themselves and then show up and ask for forgiveness, because if you come to ask for forgiveness with all your heart, you are able to be given the forgiveness.
These are children that are killed in genocide.
The UN have said that never again genocide, but it have been happening. So as Rwandan, we know, we have the experience, we are going to fight against it everywhere in the world.
The view of Rwanda and its traumatic recent past through the eyes of the children of Rwanda. And Lucy, you ended up with some horrible images, some of which we've seen before on television, but you think there's a different quality to that mini-documentary because it was shot and edited by children.
Yeah, and you get their understanding of it as well. What was really nice and interesting when we went to Rwanda, actually, was that the children didn't want to focus on Rwanda's past. They want to show the world about the prospering and building Rwanda, and we needed to include a feature on
you can't escape it, can you? You can't escape.
No, it was, you know, and it still affects their lives. I mean, but what they were really keen to get across was, you know, that there's so much more to Rwanda now, and it's growing, and they want people to come to the country, and it's beautiful. And, you know, so many of the other videos on the Rwanda page as well show that. And for somebody like myself and other people and young people in the UK watching it, they'll be like, oh wow, you know, this Rwanda's got loads of music, the culture, the wildlife. I mean, it's incredible.
Okay, Lucy, thank you very much for that. Well, from Africa's most scarred nation in some respects to one of its most iconic, the children of Ethiopia.
Okay, today we are going to celebrate the Meskel celebration that is missed by all Ethiopians. It's a traditional celebration, and Meskel it is celebrated because at the time of, in the era of Negest Eleni, during her life she got the true cross. Partial true cross, so that we Ethiopians as a Christian we are celebrating Meskel.
Yeah, you know that Meskel is a seasonal ride, which has become an integral part of the Ethiopian, you know, calendar. This is the setup, as you can see, for tonight's celebration. As you can see, it's not like an ordinary bonfire setup. It has a decoration like this is yellow, beautiful flowers. Okay, as you can see, this is our traditional way that we're going to wear for the Meskel celebration. As you can see, it's as white as milk, and it's beautiful too. Do I look beautiful? I'm beautiful. Let's go. Yeah, as you can see, we are in the middle of Meskel Square. You can see the choir singing going by, and you can see a lot of crowds, so people sitting over there to watch the Meskel ceremony, which is found in Addis Ababa near to St. Stephanos Church.
So now we are in the Meskel Square to celebrate the Meskel. So we are going to see the firing of this big bonfire.
I've never been closer like this before, so no, I'm feeling so excited. I can't even express my feeling. You know, it feels really amazing being closer to the ceremony.
Pure drama, pure passion, pure poetry from the children of Ethiopia. And Lucy, I mean, the little man at the end there, what's his name, Abdul, is it? Yeah, I mean, he's keen for people to find out more about him. He's keen for people to find out more about him.
Oh, yeah, he says, if you want to know more about me, Google me.
Okay. Well,
he was a real character, he really was fantastic.
How does this idea and its execution strike you two?
Yeah, to me, I think it's a very good idea. I also maybe want to learn something about the end result of it. When these films are made, there are donations that are given out, and then you help maybe educate the kids, or what comes out of it?
Yeah.
Afterwards?
So what's happening at the moment is it's an evolving site. So we've got 14 countries up on Our Africa at the moment. Okay. And the idea is that it's a learning resource, a teaching resource that can be used in schools or for anybody that's got an interest in Africa. We're working along with the Our Africa site is an educational resource, a teaching resource for teachers that they can use the video clips and the really comprehensive information that goes along with the videos in their lessons for for geography, for history, for science, for RE, in fact. So children in the UK and young people can draw similarities between their lives and lives with children in Africa, and think, they have the same dreams and aspirations as me, but maybe just not the same opportunities.
Yeah.
But
I think that's what's really interesting about this. I mean, when you were talking earlier, we were talking about the rights, we were talking about physical space, a space for young people to have a voice, and whether or not they use it for the platform of media, whether it's through radio or film or, as a spoken word artist, we're always looking for a platform to have your voice heard and to feel it, that you can express. And what was really nice about that last one was that there was a young guy who was really engaged with something traditional, a traditional culture, and which I think is very important as well for young people to be able to document and feel like they're part of a heritage as well,
So what now for people who want to help broaden the understanding of children in schools in this country who may not necessarily get access to that material?
Yeah, well, we want to try and get as many people using the site as possible, and trying to get as many schools using the site as well. So at the moment we're just trying to spread the word of Our Africa, asking teachers to give their input, as well as other people who be able to benefit from it as well. So the site is pretty much www.our-africa.org, so it's quite easy to find.
Need to establish one more thing, because we've got a huge Nigerian audience. Did you go to Nigeria?
We haven't yet, no.
Oh!
It's on the, it's on the list. It's coming. There's so many. There's so many.
Hang on a minute.
We're getting there.
Nigeria.
Make it more louder.
150 million people. You haven't got to them yet.
I know,
shame on you, Lucy, and your people.
I know. It's coming. It's coming. There are so many to cover, but it's definitely coming.
Do you reckon these people are frightened of going to Nigeria?
No, definitely
not. I don't think they are. I think they're probably going around the circles and finally landing.
Our next country, my colleague's just come back from Namibia, and our next country's DRC. So we're hitting them all.
How about
Lucy,
Uganda?
no, leave these people. Lucy Batson from SOS Children, thank you very much for coming in.
Cheers.
Wonderful.
Cheers.
Now, pop culture gets a pretty bad rap in this country, blamed for everything from the failure of inner-city education to the outbreak of rioting in August. But our final guest is a Ugandan writer who declares that he was raised by British pop culture in the absence of his father. NICK MAKOHA is now using his lyrical skills to spread the word.
It used to be enough to be my father's son, until he was gone. Neither of my two languages could reach down the phone and ask him to stay. Even when we lived in the same city, his voice only ever spoke to me about the news. There were no memories to show me how to love you, and I knew a day would come when I would stare back at you without words. Like the faces on the billboards on the Barking Road. This road will always lead you home. It's important to be from somewhere. I'm Ugandan, living in the East End of London. At your birth, look for me. My voice will be a river, flowing from my mouth, waiting to tell you everything. AK-47s spit like mechanical dragonflies into a Kampala night. Men tied with barbed wire hang like cows from trees, all by their genitals. Headless corpses chewed by hyenas cook on the roadside. human blood spills from the Kisigi Hills to the throat of Lake Victoria. And the price of beer, cheaper than a loaf of bread, now that the Asians have gone.
Nick Makoha talking to his son, his unborn son, and also talking about his homeland of Uganda. Nick, welcome back to the studio. You've been here some time ago. It was about a year ago you were last here?
Yeah, pleasure to be back.
That first poem was very, very tender. The second one, very graphic and brutal.
Yes.
Is that the idea? I mean, that your range is one of both tenderness but also toughness, because there's a story to tell. And what's the term that Jean-Paul Sartre, the French writer, used to use? Engagé. You're engagé. Would that be fair?
Yes, it would be. I mean, I guess there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to write about. So because I come from Uganda, it has a cocktail of things. You know, it's a beautiful country, but at the same time, it was savaged by a dictator. It has stories of colonialization. So there's that, and then there's my roots coming to London and the softening of my, I guess, approach to life with the birth of my children, my son recently. You know, and also it's kind of this sense of growth. We're talking about the Olympics, and that sense of hope that's in the air.
I'm just looking at some of the things that you have done. You know, Spoke Lab, you're a resident artist there, and the one-man show, My Father and Other Superheroes, and we chatted a bit about that, I think, last time you were here. But what does being engaged mean to you? Because I know a lot of poets, Zina is one of them as well, and you two are kind of interesting because you really do talk about what's happening outside there. You are quite political with a small p. Some other artists are not that keen to tackle some of the difficult issues. So can you explain what engagé means to you?
I think it's just being tapped in. I mean, I think you can't. You know, an artist doesn't live in a vacuum. An artist is a product.
Well, some artists I know do.
Well, they do, but I mean, in reality, you have to engage with the world. You know, I mean, all good artists do. And I think when you talk about it, you have something to say, and the politicism doesn't come in like choosing sides. It just comes in your passion to talk about what troubles you, or what you admire, or what you're drawn to. You know, so. I mean,
well, for me, I think. There's the purpose of being the storyteller. I think the sense of having a sense of purpose about being the storyteller, which means you're kind of like a channel. So you absorb what's going on around you, your environment around you, and that's going to be a little bit affected by your own upbringing and what you experience, and I guess in some ways your political views. But I mean, like I try to be as neutral as possible when I speak about. When I write my work, and just be the channel of the story with the message, and most of the time the message is about reconnecting with humanity.
Yes.
You know, and upholding and affirming humanity at the end of the day.
And sometimes, occasionally, trying to educate the next generation through your own experience. I know, Nick, you do quite a bit of this in schools and youth groups. Can you explain more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what it is language is, I think we were talking about this last time, but language is the device through which people communicate, and so a lot of times when you talk about politicizing something, when you give a young person the ability to say how they're feeling, which a lot of times they don't, so they're going through a lot of emotional disturbance, and they can't articulate what's going on with them, and then you give them this device called poetry, where they're allowed to play with language, and they're allowed to, emphasize the pain or emphasize the joy through metaphor. They suddenly feel liberated. So it's kind of an emancipation of self through language.
Yeah. Now you've got an anthology here, Being Human, more real poems for unreal times. And you have something else. Give us a sense of where you are at the moment now with your poetry.
I mean, I'm kind of in two spaces. So one is I'm working on my one-man show. I'm actually about to just go into rehearsals with that.
Okay, well, you can rehearse it here live at the moment, so that good, we know what's coming next. Okay.
And then the other part is working on my collection, which is about my experiences in Uganda and that sense of being torn away from my country.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work going into collections, anthologies. Another anthology, which is we're doing a tour right now, the 10 anthology.
Yes.
Which you should be able to see me at the V&A.
So you're one of 10 performers.
10 performers, and you know quite a few of them. Roger Robinson.
Yes, good Trinidad man.
Yes, Malika Booker.
Malika Booker, good Guyanese woman, I think. That's right.
Mafuz Ali, Wida I mean, a lot of them, all from all over the place, all over the world. So, yeah, I mean, Denise Sewell, you know, so it's...
Sewell, that will be Jamaican, yeah.
Yes.
You see?
So you're going to get... You're well informed.
Of course, man, obviously.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, so I'm in a mix. I'm being torn with the language of the page and language for the stage.
Yeah.
But it's good to be writing, it's good to be performing. Kind of taking in the steps of Zena, you know, with her, she did a great one-woman show.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
So is Zena your pathfinder, is she?
She's an inspiration, you know, but she can sing as well. So I mean, I'll leave her to that.
Please don't try.
No,
okay,
I'll break something.
You say that you're in rehearsals for your own show.
Yes.
Well, how about doing a bit of a, you know, a rehearsing run through right now? Give us a taste.
All right. Yeah. This is an well, we'll see. This will go. So it goes. It's 1, 2, 2, 1. It's 21 minutes after midnight. And my daughter has just been born. You know, I've been waiting for this moment. But it's like I'm driving without a license. I'm in charge, and I don't know where I'm going. And the whole world moves into this stage. It's been 9 minutes since the nurse put her into my palm, and I haven't moved from this spot. She weighs 3 bags of sugar. And my spider sense tells me to look away so she doesn't see me cry. But I can't peel my eyes away. You know, my father must have looked into my eyes this way, holding my head in his hands, caressing my hair, watching my intakes of breath, breathing in unison as we are now. Her marble eyes look at me without blinking. Mine say, I want to live forever, just so that I can be there for her. But how can I be there for her when her mum and I are not even married? I don't even have enough money in my bank account to last a month. And I have no home of my own to take her to. Shit! I'm sorry.
Your pardon is begged.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, I'll leave it there.
Yeah. Wow, well, apart from the 4-letter word, we'll cut him. And does it go on in that vein? It goes on in that vein, yes?
Well, yeah, I mean, the trigger point for this story was actually, well, it was several things. One was the birth of my daughter, and it was just this realization that I have no idea what being a father is. You know, like in the true context of it, because my father wasn't a constant figure in my life.
Yeah.
And then it was just the realization that all my patriarchal figures were like superheroes, action men, comics. You know, like your best friend. You're like, wow, he can shoot a basketball. I want to shoot a basketball.
But the great thing now is that you have left a legacy right there.
Yeah.
Even on this program for your daughter. We're gonna have to wrap up.
Yeah.
But can you tell us where people can see you next?
Yeah, so my one-man show should be ready in February. It'll be I'll be performing it at MAC in Birmingham, the Albany in London, the Contact in Manchester, and also in the Ark in Stockton.
Tremendous.
A mini tour, then a bigger tour later on.
Brilliant. Nick Makoha, thank you very much for coming in.
Pleasure.
Wonderful. And that's it for Shoot the Messenger this week. Remember, you can catch our repeat broadcasts all week here on Vox Africa and watch us online at voxafrica.co.uk/STM. Plus, you can follow us on Facebook. Let's say thanks again to our guests, Nick Makoha, Lucy Patterson, Steve Bolindwa, and Zena Edwards. And, of course, you for watching. Till the same time next week. Thanks again, and goodbye.